Hey, this is Jake Taylor, your host of the world's first interview Hikecast. We dive deep as interesting people take me on their favorite hikes. So if you're ready for something a little different, throw this on, get outside, and come take a hike with us. Today we're going for a hike with Bill Brewster. Bill is a research analyst at SullimarCapital Group. After getting a degree in finance and accounting from Auburn University, he got a law degree from Loyola. Bill ran a flooring franchise from 2007 to 2009 and worked as a credit analyst at BMO Harris Bank. We went for a brisk morning walk in Virginia. Please enjoy this Hikecast with Bill Brewster. But first, please save a spot on your shelf for my new book that's available now. It's called The Rebel Allocator, and it's a fictional coming-of-age story about a young man who learns about business and life from an unlikely teacher. Imagine Thorndike's The Outsiders meets The Karate Kid. You're probably saying to yourself, fiction? Really, Jake? My goal was to give you everything you'd learn from a good nonfiction book, but wrap it in an entertaining story. It's available now on Amazon in both print and digital formats. And now, without further delay, let's get outside. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of start off with give me a chance to tell your Warren Buffett story in depth.
I think I got to take a step back and sort of explain like who I am in order to have things make any sense for
That's a good start.
People that want to listen to me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my family started an insurance company, and it's called Crum & Foster. It's in Fairfax now. And growing up, I don't know, I mean, I guess the consequence of growing up with some money, I didn't really know what the heck I wanted to do. And, you know, went to college, didn't really take the college decision as seriously as I probably should have. I grew up in Florida, so I didn't want to go anywhere that wasn't in the South, because I didn't want cold weather, which is probably not the best reason to choose a school.
Yeah, just purely weather.
Right, ended up at Auburn, which, you know, I enjoyed. I made incredible friends, but culturally probably wasn't the right pick for me. But I double majored in accounting and finance. And I did enjoy accounting, but the finance part, I was just like, I just don't buy this stuff. Like, you know, DCFs just seemed like there was so much, you know, you could just juke them to make your outcome.
Sure.
So I sort of wrote off finance for a little while, or as they say there, finance.
What's the right pronunciation on that?
I have no idea, but I say finance, so that's what we're going with for today.
Like a real yokel.
That's right, that's right. So anyway, you know, I didn't know what to do after college, went to law school. And
was that just to delay reality?
More or less, you know, to be perfectly honest. I just didn't know what to do. And the only thing that I'd really ever done in my life that I enjoyed was bartending. And despite that being a decent profession, if you take it seriously, I'm not sure that that's where I wanted my life to go. So, about a year into school, I said to my wife, I was like, you know, well, she wasn't my wife then, we were dating. And I was like, I really don't like law. Like, I like law school, but I don't want to be an attorney for real. And I got like super into options trading. I did a lot of studying on options for a while, and I did really, really well my second and third year of law school. I had, we were talking about a life event that I have that really like lit a fire under my ass, for lack of a better term, and that was my first year of law school. So my first year of law school was pretty brutal. But years 2 and 3, I crushed it and whatever. So anyway, I don't know what I want to do. And I started talking to this guy in my family, Jack Rohrbeck, is a great man. And he and I were talking, and I said, you know, I really want to start a business. I think a franchise is probably the way to go because they have like the systems around me, you know, and I'm not going to know what's going on. And we've figured out, you know, that's a reasonable path for me to take. I started a flooring franchise in the middle of 2009. which was a combination of the wrong choice and the wrong person making the choice and the wrong timing.
Yeah.
It certainly was not the time to, be an inexperienced operator selling a hugely discretionary item, despite what, the franchisor would say. So,
In a post-boom period.
yeah, it was bad. I mean, but I did, some of the people that I did business with, this one guy, Peter Quinn, was a great guy. He really liked me. And after, I finally folded up the franchise, he hired me to be his attorney in a couple things. I was like, I don't know, man, but I'll try. And I was basically his collections agent, and that went pretty well. I mean, I enjoyed that. I wrote this one brief against an insurance company, and I think they really underestimated me. And the guy sort of half-assed the response. And then my answer to his response was just awesome. It was one of those things that I did and I was really proud of.
Yeah.
And we got a settlement 2 days later, and I was like, all right, cool. I could do this if I wanted. So anyway, it's 2010. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And my grandma's friend, John Renette, is actually friends with Bogle. And sent me 2 Bogle books and The Intelligent Investor.
Which is a very conflicting message.
I know, he's got a sick thing in him that was I'll give you the answer everyone thinks is smart, and then I'll give you a tortured life, in the middle, right? And I just read it, and it just, I don't know, it's like Buffett said, it's an inoculation, and it just sort of made sense, and it's what I wanted to pursue. So then I just became this huge Buffett head.
Not a Bogle head.
No. No offense to them. I mean, I think those people are probably got a very logical life choice. But I went to work at BMO Harris Bank. I was underwriting loans.
Did you feel that was a step towards Buffett, or
man, I just
I
needed something to get, something that tangible that I could get my feet under me and say I'm worthy of working, for lack of a better term, right? The failure of the franchise was pretty crushing.
Yeah, took a lot out of the psyche.
Yeah, which looking back at it, what did I expect, But at the time, it was everything to me.
Yeah.
You're sleeping there, trying to get this thing off the ground, and 1 step forward, 3 steps back. It's brutal. It gave me a real appreciation for small business.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm at BMO, and I start studying for the CFA exam. So, between studying for the CFA exam and reading Buffett all the time, there's an argument to be made that maybe I wasn't as focused on banking as I possibly could have been.
Yeah.
But part of me just wasn't really amped up about it. And I'd go into meetings with my credit managers, and all I'd want to talk about is so we'd be doing a loan, on a fertilizer company and have asset coverage and tons of inventory and whatever, and it's a small little revolver that's probably going to be undrawn. And I'm there trying to talk about what's this company's basis advantage and why is it sustainable, and
They don't care about.
Yeah, everybody was just Brewster, what are you doing, man? Just, get the loan done. Not to say that they weren't thoughtful about it, but I was just really, really interested in minutia of stuff. And finally, when I ended up leaving, which my wife encouraged me to do after I had got my CFA degree or designation, and I sort of said to her, look, we've got enough that I want to try this. I won't blow us up, and if it works, this is what I want to do with my life. And if it doesn't, even if I have to go to a smaller bank and start working my way up again, I'm willing to do that. And she was like, well, I think you've sort of proven your passion between the CFA and how annoying you are to listen to about Buffett.
Yeah, she's like, can you just find some friends in this so I don't have to talk to you about it?
That's right. Go to Omaha and find some people that you can talk to about this stuff. I started running money, or my money, and I always wanted to write him to thank him, because now, like, I feel alive. I love this stuff. The Hikecast is taking place in a southeastern state. I don't know if we want to out what we're doing, but it's a group of guys coming together to just talk ideas, and I could do it all day, and I love trying to figure out what makes things tick and why they're going to continue to. It's like being a life detective and then applying it to business. So anyway, I didn't know how to thank Buffett, and finally I was just like, he's going to die and I'm never going to say thank you.
Yeah, which would feel pretty bad.
It'd be awful, right? I mean, this guy's like my hero, but not in like, I don't know, it's like not like in a, I mean, it is a little bit of a weird way, right? But it's not like, it's just I owe my life to him, I feel.
You don't get a chance to express it directly, your gratitude. Like, you can't give him a hug or something,
Yeah, and if I did, security would probably tackle me, So anyway, I was like, all right, well, what am I going to write him about? And the long story short, well, it's already been long, but I said, all right, you got to tell him the truth, and then you got to tell him thank you. And I had known that he had owned a position in the Crum & Foster, the company my family started, so that was sort of the mutual interest that I touched on from a business perspective. And then there was a bunch of personal stuff that I laid out there that sort of touches on a lot of things that he's talked about, and some of the things that I perceive that I've seen in my family as a consequence of having some money that I think he would agree with. And then I basically wrapped it up. I said, you want to be remembered as a teacher, but you're like much more than that to me. So
Aww.
I just want, it is cheesy or whatever, but I meant it.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that the authentic place that I wrote it from, combined with the material, at least got his head thinking.
Yeah.
And the response that he wrote me was just like perfect. I mean, he's so good at writing. His sentences. They're
very crisp, huh?
Yeah. Well, it was like I was at the Goldman dinner when they pitched Xerox on buying Crum & Foster instead of Geico. Lucky for you and me, Xerox agreed. It's like it's just such a perfect way to say, you've got a nice life and I own Geico, and that's awesome, right?
Yeah.
So
that worked out for all of us.
Anyway, that's my background and my Buffett story.
So now, managing money, your own money, how long did it take for you to feel like you had the confidence to not blow yourself up or not to
Oh man, I don't know.
Major missteps that you feel like you couldn't undo?
I'm not. I mean, every single day I worry that I'm not competent, and I think that that's probably a good thing. I don't say that like in a fearful way, but I say it in a way like you got to respect the other side of the trade. I think I probably would consider myself like a true professional 18 months ago, and I left BMO in early 2016. So let's say I sort of like
3 years.
Yeah. So it probably took me about 1.5 years to even figure out, how big a bet's to size, and it's in hindsight a shame because I had some really good ideas at the time that worked for the right reasons, and I probably should have sized them bigger. Then there's the part of my brain that says, like, that is definitely hindsight bias.
Yeah.
And
there were no guarantees there. You could have had your face ripped off.
That's right. Avoiding the risk of ruin is much more important than worrying about the upside that you didn't get.
Yeah.
But I've got buddies that run like really concentrated funds, and I have immense respect for what they do. I don't think I have that kind of risk tolerance at its core. And I think my ideal portfolio is probably, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 15 securities. I don't think I really want to run like a 3-security portfolio ever or anything like that.
Yeah.
I guess if I had like if I had a true no doubter, but I don't know how many of those exist. And then it'd have to be able to compound forever. And
maybe it could grow into a kind of unreasonable size, but to come at cost, that takes a lot of confidence in yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And I got kids and a wife that's been crazy supportive of me. Like, I just don't know what I understand the idea of, if you know one thing really well, what are you really risking? But like, that doesn't really pass my smell test. And I'm not trying to risk what my kids and wife have because I have some desire to be known as one of the greats.
Right. Well, I think too sometimes about like, okay, you get public information about a company, and they publish a lot of information about themselves, but everything is not in there necessarily. Like, you don't know which VPs don't like each other. You don't know necessarily like where some potential big write-down could happen and just catch you totally unaware.
Yeah.
You get their best version of themselves, really. Like, they try to put their best foot forward. Like, and granted, that's what they should be doing. But I was kind of joking earlier that I think, especially for consumer-facing companies, it's almost like celebrity marriages, where because we see them so often, we think that we know them more than. So when they get divorced, and some celebrity couple, it comes as this huge shock. Where it's like, you don't know these people really, right?
Yeah.
So every business could have that surprise divorce hiding, and you would never really know it. So I think that there's sometimes a bit of hindsight bias of us worshipers of guys who did well when their things work out.
Yeah.
And they bet really big. But that didn't have to be the way that it happens.
Well, there's a ton of guys that bet big and were wrong and are really freaking smart, and no one's ever heard of them.
That's right.
And the math of climbing back from a loss is just, maybe that's why I partnered with 3G. I know it's a potential divorce. It's priced in.
Yeah. You've been pretty, I would say, prolific on Twitter. Whether you want to, accept that as a charge or not. But
No, I love Twitter. I mean, it's obvious, right? If you have my feed, I'm like on it all the time.
What do you think that does for you? Do you think is that your social kind of network, given that you're not in a shop right now, like you don't show up
Yeah.
and have people to bounce ideas off of necessarily, not in a professional context?
Yeah, well, I mean, the hardest thing by far for me is not being around people. I sort of have this internal struggle where, like, I honestly think I could crush it being like a salesperson for some people, because I want to talk this stuff all the time. I love being around people, and doing research is not, it's a solitary game. Doing it well means, shutting that part of you off, right, and thinking for yourself. So with Twitter, I have just found that there are far fewer trolls than I thought that there would be. And when, like, I came in and I saw what Bluegrass was doing, and then that whoever that person WTCM3 was, like, what they did was just crazy. Like, I don't even know. I was thinking to myself, this has got to be 3 people to put this kind of stuff up, or it's got to be somebody that's just doing this all day long. But my operating thesis with that is like, okay, I can be somebody here that just takes a bunch of stuff from the platform and doesn't provide any value, right? And I just try, if I read something, I just try to share it if it's interesting and I think people maybe aren't looking at it, or like with airlines, who the heck's looking at airlines? No one in their right mind, but it's something that I follow. So there's some interesting things where, you know, their loyalty programs, I think, apply to other industries that people are interested in. So I'll share a bunch about their loyalty programs. And I think the downside of that is confirmation bias, and there's some availability bias that it brings in and whatever. But in my opinion, the upside, the acceleration that I've had in my learning from it, thanks to other people doing similar things, has certainly outweighed the downside.
Yeah, that would be, my experience has been that there's some incredible signal that you can get, but sometimes the amount of noise to get it, I kind of wonder if it's that helpful for me.
I think that that's fair. And, you know, like, something that drives me nuts probably isn't the right way to say it, but something I think about a lot is, you know, like, people get amped up about the names that they own. I mean, I have endowment bias on the things that I own. Everybody does, right? So
Sure.
When Costco is trading at a multiple, I don't know what the multiple is today. I know it's steep, especially relative to history. Like, you get all these articles that are shared about like how awesome the company is doing. And it's like, yeah, that's why the multiple's where it is, right? I mean, like, if you weren't reading stuff like this and you were paying the price you're paying, then you're like insane. So
Yeah.
that's not even the question, right? The question is, how long can this persist and why? It's not a platform that leads itself to that kind of thought, which is why I started to try to write the blog, which I think has been a great thing for me to clarify my thinking.
Man, having to write is the ultimate forcing function.
Yeah. And I enjoy long form. I enjoy reading it. I enjoy writing it. So that's been fun. And you know, there's an element of Twitter that's marketing. There's part of me that's like, you know, if this thing doesn't work out for me, I got to figure out how to get some job somewhere. So it's nice that some people know who I am. Hopefully they appreciate what I'm doing. And in law school, I mentioned like I did really well the second and third year. There's a direct correlation, one, between applying myself, but two, like my wife and this guy, Matt Shimka, we're so much smarter than me. Like I probably didn't belong in the same room when they let me in it. And my grades destroyed people, you know, the next 2 years. The reason's because I surrounded myself with the right people. Like, I hope that I added value to their life, but I'm convinced I took a lot more than I gave. I just see it with, like, you know, that account Modest Proposal. Like, I just hope that I can share something that guy is like, oh, thank you, you know, because I don't know, there's a lot of really amazing people out there that are trying to do something similar that I am, and they're doing it a little bit better. So hopefully I can improve my game.
Yeah. Yeah, do you think that, you know, the idea of you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around, does that apply to Twitter as well?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't know if it's the 5 people, then you probably just have a bunch of, you know, echo chamber feed on, you know, like lately Match.com has been in my life like crazy, and I'm like, all right, I get it. I think Tony Robbins was the one that, promoted that. He definitely didn't find it, but he's the best promoter.
He took it from Jim Rohn.
Yeah, there you go. I think generally, another thing that annoys my wife is almost everything that Tony Robbins says has some pretty decent applicability, which is why he's Tony Robbins. Now, he's arguably a little bit overly promotional, but he's a good salesman and he's got good material, so a lot of people buy it.
So maybe we talk a little bit about parenting. I know you and I, you know, both take our roles of dad pretty seriously. Not that every dad doesn't, but I think we both try to be thoughtful about it.
Yeah.
And probably it has to do with our shared interest in our mentors of, you know, Buffett and Munger. And I think they at least thought about it a fair amount. I don't know what they would say we were doing right or wrong necessarily.
Yeah, well, look,
So you have 3 boys.
I don't go to them for parenting advice, right? I have 3 boys. We were talking earlier about our family situations, and I don't know quite as much about yours, but I think we probably have some lines that overlap. I mean, like when I was growing up, first of all, my parents tried the best they could, and I have great parents. If they're listening, I love you guys. But
that said,
yeah, well, I saw, like, my parents have been through 5 divorces. I saw 3. One was really brutal. My mom's after my dad. And I don't want my kids to live through that. My dad married my stepmom, who's no longer my stepmom, but I don't know what it was about her and I, but we just never got along. We get along fine now, and I respect her for what she did for me and trying to instill discipline into my home. And a lot of it was circumstance why we didn't get along. But it drove a wedge in my family that didn't, in theory, need to be there. And I just don't want to. I don't want to do that to my kids. And I don't mean that in like my dad did it to me, but it's. I have to make sure that my marital relationship is right, and then I have to make sure that I'm doing things for my children in the way that they need it. And if I can get that in line, then the rest of my life can be in line.
it can be difficult though, because like there's a part of you that, and maybe it's just, could be ego for me, that wants to crush things that other people would care about more. And crushing it as a dad is not something that people appreciate really that much.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, it's the one thing that's going to actually matter.
I hope that's true.
I know it is. I mean, everyone loves their kids more than anyone else loves their kids, right? But like, I'm really proud of who my kids are becoming. And they're a little young, so I still have a lot of time to mess that up. But and I'm sure I will, right? I mean, we'll be on a couch one day and they'll be like, "Dad, I can't believe you did this," and I'll just be like, "Whatever, man, I tried." But I can see some benefit in the effort.
And you think about your childhood, and maybe not always perfect, and all of those things kind of make you who you are. So there's a struggle that maybe leads to strength. And I sometimes wonder for my kids about, if their life is so easy most of the time, do they ever have to struggle? And you never want to see your kids struggle. That's the hard part. But does then that lead to not having the strength and the resilience? Because it's like the muscle never gets built up.
My wife used to be a big firm attorney, so she's crazy smart, as I've said a couple times.
Hey, you're really laying it on thick there.
No, well, I mean, I'm so fortunate to be married to her because I can outsource most of this kid stuff to her, and I know she's got it, and that enables me to focus on the work. And that's like such an advantage to not have to worry about, like, is my partner taking care of my kids in the way that they need it?
True. And probably doing a better job than I would if I was.
By far, look, I love the kids. I'm a good dad, but like, if I dressed my children, they'd get made fun of. Yeah. Like, I don't have the emotional IQ necessary to raise children, so.
Sure, you can wear a colander on your head to school.
Yeah.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, I'd be like Big Daddy, right? Like, yeah, you want to eat ketchup, eat ketchup, whatever. My kids were raking leaves, and this woman, Mandy Pekin, on our block, great people, said, "Why don't you come rake our leaves," right? My kids go over there and they're like so amped and they're doing a great job. Mandy gives my boy Harry $3, and Harry loses it in the leaf pile while he's jumping in. He comes home, he's a crier, he gets very emotional. And, I saved him from it. And my wife was like, you sort of ruined the lesson there, right? Like, I was hugging him and explaining to him that you know, sometimes bad things happen and it's how we respond, and then you run in with his $3 and like, you can't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
she's like teaching a stoic lesson and you throw him a 5 spot.
That's right. And it's a stupid, silly example, but to your point, like that was a real struggle to him. Now that's not the kind of struggle that you're talking about, but I got to be really careful not to save them from the struggles that they have, because most of their life, in theory, should be pretty set up unless I really mess up something.
Do you feel a lot of pressure from that?
Oh, no way, man. I mean, my cards are, I can't complain about the cards I've been dealt.
Well, probably almost anybody listening to this has been dealt a pretty good hand. But relative to not only the world today, but also the history of mankind. Like if you threw your ping pong ball into history as well as just the genetic lottery of the year you were born, I mean, no question.
Oh, it's insane.
We've pulled just crazy long odds to win.
You know, that's one of the things of many that, you know, Berkshire, I think, is good for. I mean, if you really listen to what they say, you know, a lot of it's about gratitude and like, you know, their current outlook on outperformance. Like, I can understand how it can upset some investors, but what Charlie is basically saying is like, look, if you are smart enough to own Berkshire and Ken, your biggest concern is not outperformance. You're going to end up okay. Just, you know, don't avoid the big pitfalls. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I think, you know, especially in an industry that's so focused on performance chasing, it's good to have that reminder. I mean, I don't know how smart it is to own something that you think legitimately might underperform the S&P in an industry where everyone's saying everyone should index. I can understand why people think there's a lot of risk there. For me, I'm really comfortable with that risk, and what it represents is so beneficial to my life that I keep it in the portfolio in size.
The psychic gains are also a factor.
They're a factor. Look, I don't think that they're like, I think you give me Berkshire's assets and put them up against other people's assets, I'll take that fight. But, you know, it's far from certain to win.
Yeah, I mean, size is the only real probably thing to worry about. It's just so big.
Yeah,
But so is the S&P 500, so.
Yeah, but at least at least there you get the tax-free advantage of switching into the winners without paying tax and whatever. But
yeah,
honestly, there's a part of indexing that's boring to me. Like, active management has made me much more interested in the world, and I you know, we'll see. It has paid off over the last 12 months. 12 months means nothing. The past 3 years, if I didn't carry cash, would have been great. They've been really good anyway. I'm done carrying cash for the equity allocation part, and we'll see.
I do like the Hagstrom's book, The Last Liberal Art. I do think investing makes you a much more thoughtful and engaged with the world person. Because you're just trying to figure things out. Like, how do things work? How do things fit together? What's the cause and effect? You just end up probably a better person in general, assuming you don't blow it all up and become an alcoholic or something.
Yeah, and apply the lessons and, you know, get out from behind the books, right? I mean, like, really, it's one thing to read about why things happen. It's another to experience them.
I'm probably guilty of that as anybody, of hiding a little bit in the library.
It's easy, right?
Feels good. Feels like you're being productive.
Yeah, and there's no rejection, right? You don't have to worry about picking up a phone and cold calling somebody to have a conversation, them saying go pound sand. Like,
do you ever feel like that there's a little bit of a holier than thou from the index kind of world?
Yeah, I mean, look, they've had a good run. Everybody gets holier than thou after a good run. We'll see. Give me a good drawdown period. I'm so sad.
We don't have that anymore.
I'm so sad that December just V'd. I mean, I was like so happy in December, And, you know, I was fortunate to deploy a fair amount of capital, honestly, on like, and this is complete luck, right? But December 22nd, 24th, and 28th, I put a lot out there in names that have ripped. The frustrating thing is I think I was right for the right reasons. And now, like, some of the prices have just run so far that it feels lucky almost.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, now I don't even really want to hold them for the long term because of the run. And part of me feels robbed of the opportunity to be right, which is like so stupid, but it is how I feel. One of the things you asked me about, like, when did I get professional? For the longest time, like, I'd be looking at what other people were doing, right? I mean, I walked into Hertz after flying in here, and I was like, how the heck did I ever think that following Icahn in, I mean, it was a small position, but like, why did I convince myself that Carl Icahn knew anything about this?
When was the last time he rented a car?
Well, yeah, it's a terrible freaking business. I know he was long-lived at some point and probably still is, but like, you can turn around an asset base that no one wants. I guess that makes sense for him. The sort of gut check moment was, I bought it, it was tiny, you know, maybe 2% or something like that. And I go to Omaha, and I'm looking at the car rental rates. And then I just started looking at Uber. And I was like, all right, well, this is no comparison. So I Ubered all around Omaha. And then the next day, I flew from Omaha to Denver. I didn't rent a car in Denver. And if you cannot rent a car in Denver, like, that airport's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's pretty far outside of town.
I was like, what the heck do you even need this thing for anymore? You know, error of commission buying it. Corrected the error, but then I went to this place called Stream Song in Florida, and that weekend sort of like changed my life. It's silly to say out of one weekend, but there were some really, really good people there. There's a guy named Chris, I'm gonna mess up his last name. I'm almost certain it's Sasley. He writes under Find Me Value on Twitter.
What was the event there?
So he and Connor Leonard put together, it was just like, I don't know, 12 of us, right? And they tweeted out, they were like, we're gonna do this weekend. People that think like us should come, sort of like we're doing right now. And I sat down with Connor, and he was talking to me, and he's like, look, man, everything that you've said about your portfolio, like everything that you talk that you own makes sense to me. But you're still following people into stuff. He's like, you got to get rid of that. Whatever it is in you just has to lose that, because a lot of these guys don't know anything more than you do once you've done your work. Since that conversation, and since I've applied what he said, I'm proud of what I've done. And I think I've done a lot of it for the right reasons, and I think a lot of it's probably a bull market.
Yeah. That makes it tough to recognize genius.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was right on Starbucks. I wasn't that right that quick. Like, that was, you know, in my opinion, the re-rating in that company, off them proving that the afternoon day part could be reinvented with iced coffee. Like, get out of here. This is stupid. And I get it. Like, you know, they re-accelerated sales, and that's great for units, and the economics are great, but, like, I don't know. You're paying a rosy price today, in my opinion. But Ackman's still long, and he's probably much smarter than me, so what do I know?
When I was teaching, I did a study on, I took all the track records of different heroes, all the names that you would recognize, and I took them and I laid them out like per year. And then I took all these different value studies, and it would be, you know, Tweety Brown, What Works on Wall Street, Magic Formula, and I overlaid them over the same years. And I tried to do like a studies versus gurus kind of analysis. I was testing actually like James Monnier's hypothesis about how like simple models represent the ceiling, not the floor of what we can add to or subtract from. And granted, like when you have the studies there's probably liquidity things that someone couldn't have actually gotten into. Trading costs are probably not baked in. Some of them are, but most of them aren't, especially the older ones. The studies trounce the gurus.
Yeah.
So everyone leaves the market way behind, but the gurus underperformed the studies.
Huh.
And
Well, you're making an argument for quants, right?
yeah, it is. But my hypothesis was this mechanical study would buy things cheap and participate in that irrationality on the downside and get it back. But because it just had like a, hold for 2 years or whatever the rule was, it would capture some of that irrationality to the upside as well, that a guru, when he looks at it and says, well,
this doesn't make sense.
This doesn't make sense, I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't know if that hypothesis is right because I can't really test it.
Yeah.
But it sounds nice.
Well, it's hard enough to make one decision. To make two is really hard. I mean, when I pitched AB InBev, like, I get why people prefer Heineken to it. I really do. I might be the idiot. I feel like an idiot sometimes with it. But, I don't want to have... I guess Heineken's probably not the right example because people own that for the long term. But, like, Tap, Molson Coors, or Miller Coors. Like, I don't want to buy that entity and then sell it and then buy something else within the same space. Like, that's 3 correct decisions I have to make. Yeah. I'm not even sure I made one correct one yet. I mean, we'll see in a couple of years, but...
Yeah, even if it was a coin flip, 3 in a row, conditional probabilities linked like that, they starts to get hard.
Yeah. I mean, what, 12.5%? Like, okay, good luck. They're not like fully conditional, right? But it's also not independent. So I don't know. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I really like Toby's fund. Like, he really stripped it down to the most basic. And, when you talk to him about how he sort of got there, right? He just kept stripping away variables. And there's a certain vulnerability to be like, I do this. This is what I do, right? It's basically EV to free cash, and I'm gonna bet everything on it. Yeah. But like, ultimately, this is what the math shows me. So I respect that.
Yeah. No, the intellectual honesty of it is compelling.
But then, what's funny is you and I are talking last night about how would we blow up in 1 year if we would try, right, to figure out how much of the game's luck versus skill. It's like, I'd just buy something in that bottom decile that's super levered and like, it'd be terrible. But then we were talking like, if you're wrong that it's terrible and it turns out right, you're up like 6x, and then you got a Brewster's Millions problem.
Do you have any desires to join a firm or something to have a little bit more of that built-in network?
I like talking ideas with people. I miss people. I like teamwork. I want to be part of something that's trying to kick something else's butt. Like, which I am, right? But it's just me.
Yeah.
Something with like a formal investment committee.
Not as interesting.
I just, it would depend. It would depend on the firm structure. It'd have to be pretty decentralized. I don't know. What is the study that Munger talks about with the best ideas when they got together?
Take the one best idea from, I don't know how many people they had in there, but...
Yeah, and it did terribly, right? So there's merit. Like, I've heard about Harris Associates process, and I really like how they have a devil's advocate in the room, and I really like how they tear apart the thesis. I do it to myself. I mean... When I pitched AB InBev, my buddy called me. He's like, I think you laid out the bear case as well as the bull case, right? And it's like, well, if you don't know how to argue both sides, you probably shouldn't own it.
You think that's the law school in you?
I think it helped a lot.
Yeah.
There is something about that method of thinking that just gets ingrained in you.
Well, Munger says, if you can't argue the other side's position better than them, then you don't have much of a right to say
That's right.
much about your position.
I do think that there's something about law school that forces you into that position. I think it's easy to convince yourself that you know that position. So, in that way, I think whatever the cost of law school was, I don't even want to really think about it. I mean, I was about to say the number and then I just blanked that out of my head.
You just threw up a little in your mouth.
Yeah, like there's no reason to say it or think it again. But, that's the value that I took from it, I guess. With the firm, I would love the security of it. I would love the team aspect of it. But it would really need to be the right fit for them and me.
So the help wanted sign's not not out?
It's not closed.
Yeah.
It's just not, I'm not going to go into something right now that isn't needed. I found myself in those positions before, and I don't think they work out for anyone.
Probably a good place to wrap things up.
Indeed. Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, it was enjoyable, and it was nice to get a little fresh air too, and move the body.
You know, I hope it was enjoyable for at least one listener. I'm sure I'll listen, so it'll be enjoyable to me.
You should make your wife listen after all the nice things you said.
Yeah. You know, I'm not trying to be cheesy with it, but I did get lucky with her, so not quite sure why she settled for me. Probably because Match.com didn't give her other options at the time. We had to meet in person.
Yeah, tough break.
That's right, yeah.
She missed it by like 5 years.
That's right, and I got lucky by 5, so that works out. Another good card I was dealt, I suppose.
Hope you enjoyed today's Hikecast. If you'd like to take me on your favorite hike, email me at 5goodquestions@gmail.com, all spelled out. Lastly, pick up your copy of The Rebel Allocator, available on Amazon in both print and digital formats, and soon to be Audible. See you on the trail soon.